Look, I know the school board is really into the buy local thing, and it's good we're helping the small businesses around here, but we can't deal with all these mushrooms. The ladies and I are sick of cooking them, and the kids look sad every time we serve them. It's been 11 days in a row so far, and without fail, the local mushrooms are making it onto the plate in one form or another. From the looks of the shipment we got this morning, it'll be at least another week of the same. We've got some good kids in this school. Oh, lots of good kids. I've been here for going on 40 years, and this might be the best crop of students I've ever seen. I don't know why, but this whole buy local thing feels like we're sort of changing them. It's like they're getting less than they deserve for being so polite and studious. I know it's not my place to say it. I'm just the lady who serves them lunch. But I've been here long enough to know how much kids look forward to their lunchtime. If their food is boring or disappointing, their days just won't be as good as they should be. They're children, for God's sake. They don't need to know what disappointment is yet. I'm sorry, I feel bad for complaining. I really do. It's not like me to write a letter like this, let alone put it up so lots of people can see it. Part of me thinks it might be because of what happened to little Danny the other day. I know none of it could be blamed on us. How could we know the boy had allergies? Even his mom didn't know. But it was just so horrible. I know Mr. Crowley cleaned the floor with bleach, but I swear I can still see the blood stain. Maybe I'm legitimately scared of what I saw happen to Danny, and I'm wondering if anyone might know how a reaction could be so severe. I've seen little boys and girls have allergic reactions before, and sure, they swell up and they have trouble breathing, all of that. Terrible and scary, for sure. But nothing that'll give you nightmares after seeing it more than a couple of times. What Danny went through, though, I'm hoping the principal and guidance counselors will get the students and staff counseling if they need it. It just might. Oh, God. How does a boy's skin change so quickly? You see it happening right in front of you. He was fine one minute. Then after a bite of his lunch, his friend said his face and hands looked like they got sticky. As soon as Danny touched his face to see what was wrong, his hand stuck. And when he pulled, the skin just fell away. While his classmates screamed, Danny started yelling that his clothes were hurting them, and he pulled them off. All the skin underneath came with them. I've never, ever seen anything so terrible in my life. He began to vomit blood, and then he passed out. When the paramedics got there, I couldn't believe he was alive. The principal told us at the meeting he needed multiple transfusions and skin grafts at the hospital, but he'd live. She wouldn't answer why his reaction was so severe. I doubt she knew anyway. I guess I feel a little better after getting that out of my system. Still, I wish I could know what caused such a terrible reaction. We were eventually told it was because of the mushrooms, but that we shouldn't worry because none of the other children appeared to be allergic. I have to go start cooking this afternoon's lunch, but there's just one more thing that I can't understand. When they were wheeling Danny out on the gurney, and he had left a blood trail down the hall and all the way to the ambulance, the ground where he bled outside got covered in stringy, white mushrooms. I'm sure it's just an ugly coincidence because they're nothing like the fat Portobello Nuvo that the local distributors have been giving us. But I just hate how my mind is making me connect the two things, you know? At least the birds ate them within a day or two, so I don't have to see them when I come in. Anyway, I'm off to work. There's a nasty cold going around the school, and we're making cream of chicken and mushroom soup for the children. I'll probably have a little bit myself. My throat is starting to feel sore. After all the schools and municipal cafeterias stopped taking shipments of wild mushrooms from the county co-op, they all came to my company for us to use. Normally, this would be fantastic. Mushrooms make great fertilizer. I've got acres upon acres of property with great soil. It's such good stuff that people come from all over the country in dump trucks to buy a load and haul it back to wherever they want. Our family's been caring for the land for going on, 200 years now. We've been asked to sell the property to big agribusinesses more times than we can count, but we could never give it up, even when the offers got into the upper 7 figures. We've been content with the low 6s that come in consistently, year after year. I got a phone call about a month ago from the farm co-op that's been handling all the local produce for the county schools and whatnot. Apparently there's been no interest in the mushroom glut after little Danny Lansing's tragic passing. The co-op guy on the phone told me what I already knew. The boy's death was from an unknown allergic reaction, and no one else, as far as he knew, had gotten sick from the mushrooms. I listened and waited for him to tell me what kind of deal he'd give me if I were to buy the whole supply. I'll admit it, I was pretty surprised when he said he wasn't even considering charging me for the supply. To the contrary, he said the co-op would give me $5,000 if I sent trucks over to take them all away. Yeah, $5,000 sounded like a hell of a lot for a local farm co-op, and when I said that to the guy, he just said, "Well, it's a hell of a lot of mushrooms." So, 2 of my guys, Ramon and Juan, headed over to the co-op, one in a dump truck and the other in a backhoe. Ramon and his dump truck were the first to arrive, and he radioed me the minute he saw the amount of product they'd have to move. I called in 2 more guys and sent them with another 2 dump trucks, and when all was said and done, they picked up 8 truckloads. I let them split the $5,000 among themselves. The last half of the truckloads were delivered after dark, so even though I knew I was getting tons of the things, I was still pretty taken aback in the morning when I saw the mountains of fungus sitting in the field near the barn. I went over to investigate and saw the majority of them looked like portobellos, but there were some stringy white ones in there that looked like that Japanese kind. I can't remember the name of them now, but you know what I'm talking about. And the 4 guys who helped out yesterday were there at the crack of dawn. They hadn't expected such a huge bonus yesterday, so they were eager to get work and show their appreciation. I've always believed it's important to treat the people who you employ with respect, and these guys have been with us for a long time. Juan had just celebrated his 30th year here. Without them, the company wouldn't be nearly as good as it is. I make sure to tell them that as often as I can. So they got to work loading the mushrooms into a huge grinder that's been part of the business for almost a century. So it eats through any organic matter you feed into it and turns it into the perfect size and consistency to get incorporated into the soil. 5 hours later, 2 piles of mushrooms had been reduced to a pulpy sludge. I worked out which part of the property should get the new fertilizer, and as luck would have it for the guys who had to spread it out, the area right near where they'd been working had gone the longest without upkeep. After 2 days, that part of the field was all finished, just in time for the weekend. No one was around from Saturday until Tuesday. I told the guys my wife and I were going to take a few day trips to enjoy the unseasonably warm weather, and I had them take Monday off. And we got back in the wee hours of Tuesday, long before sunrise. Felt like I'd just gotten to sleep when I heard banging on the door, and my cell phone started ringing too. I picked up and Pedro started yelling in my ear. Now, my ability to understand Spanish is okay, but not when it's being spoken at 100 miles an hour and being half shouted. So I told Pedro to calm down and asked if his dad was available to talk. Don't get me wrong, I love the kid, but he's pretty excitable. I guess that all 16-year-olds are. Juan got on the line as I walked over to the front door. Ramon was standing there looking bewildered. Juan was saying something about the mushrooms on the phone as Ramon pulled me by the arm around to the other side of the house, near the field where they'd been working. I saw Pedro first, then Juan, still talking into his cell phone. I stopped listening, though. I could see something in the newly fertilized field about 100 yards away, but it was being blurred by a haze of orange fog. And the four of us walked toward the field. I started to get a nagging feeling of unease. There were these large, bulbous shapes protruding from the ground. Even as we closed in, their clear shapes eluded us. The dark orange fog still obscured the details. Ramon pointed out footprints in the dirt, all converging on that part of the field. The more I looked, the more I saw. Tens of pairs of footprints. The orange fog licked at our feet and ankles and legs as we got closer. I put my shirt over my mouth and nose before walking any closer. The rest of the guys did too. The footprints appeared to come from all around, spaced out as if they were running. And we'd gotten close enough to make out the bulbous forms. They were some kind of fungus. They looked like giant pieces of ginger root sticking out of the ground. And their sides were lined with pores, some open, some covered with a loose membrane. And out of nowhere, Pedro screamed and put his hands to his face, dropping his shirt from his mouth in the process. I saw him gasp a lungful of the fog. My eyes widened when I saw what had startled him. Bodies were wrapped around the base of each mushroom stalk as if they were embracing them. Their skin was destroyed. I can't think of any other way to put it. Massive patches were missing, usually a foot or more in diameter in each spot. And there were many, many spots. The most unsettling aspect, though, as if it could get much worse, was the condition of their feet. Some of them were in tatters, bones sticking out of shredded muscle and veins dangling like thick, loose hair. I don't know what could have possibly happened. It almost looked like they were worn away. We heard loud breathing behind us and we spun around. A hideously thin woman, completely naked and patterned with areas of missing flesh, ran by us. One of her feet was missing. Each step, she pushed the stump of her ankle into the dirt. She ran face first into one of the mushrooms, wrapped her arms around it, and sunk to the ground with a smile on her face. As her arms slid across the pores in the stalk, they burst open, filling the air with more orange fog. The men with me were all talking loudly to one another, backing away. More runners in similarly devastated conditions were arriving. We kept walking away and out of the orange fog. Juan called Pedro's name. It's when I noticed he wasn't with us. They called again. Pedro came out of the fog, coated, like we were, with orange spores. Unlike us, though, his mouth and nose were still uncovered. He stared blankly, scratched at his face and neck. Juan rushed towards his son, started pulling him away from the field, but Pedro turned toward it and began to walk back. Juan, being much stronger, was still able to pull the boy back out of the field and to the barn, where we all stripped down and hosed one another off. We stood in the middle of the barn, wondering aloud what the hell was happening. Pedro, now clean, kept scratching himself. Lines had started to form over the spots where his fingernails had traveled. His legs pumped as he ran in place, not listening to his father, ordering him to stay still. A moment later, while Juan was trying to call 911, we watched, helplessly, as Pedro started running in the direction of the mushroom field, slamming into the closed door of the barn, picking himself up, and doing it all again. And again, and again, and again. Vaughn, it's Bill from SIGINT. I know you asked me to email you if I was having any trouble and needed advice from someone at your company. Well, you're the guy I need advice from. I'm getting ready to smash this goddamn $500 million communications console you guys gave me if I can't figure out what's causing all this distortion. A couple of my engineers think it's from wire crosstalk, but they're out of their minds. I wired all this up myself. All the stuff is shielded. Besides, this isn't crosstalk distortion. I've been doing this for 25 years, and I know what wire crosstalk sounds like. I've overseen the installation of every new piece of hardware and every upgrade for 2.5 decades. Believe you me, it's not the wiring. I'm resolved to solve this goddamn problem tonight. If I can't, well, they're just going to have to buy a whole new console and transceiver array. Maybe if they're nice, I'll even wire it up for them. But I swear to God, if another one of those new enlisted interns, I call them, comes and says that their CO is blaming me for the shitty communications, I'm retiring on the spot. Fuck them. Here's what I got so far. There's something getting picked up on the PHZ band. Yeah, way the fuck up there. Our software's default mode is to decode and shift it down to speech or text, but all we get are layers of static. That static is permeating the lower bands and affecting the quality of our normal communications. We can't have that. Now, there's another reason why I'm writing you, Vaughn, and I know you're cleared to talk to me about this if it's relevant. Last year, when you asked us for advice about your own problem with the PHC band and the assembler prototype, you mentioned something about receiving some type of proprietary schemata. Well, I overrode the software to test something out. Instead of shifting the transmission into our text and speech protocols, I instructed the software to spit out the raw data and see if it matches any of our proprietary system's languages. And it did, Vaughn. There was a match, a pretty major one. Like I said, I'm planning on solving this problem tonight. If you can confirm to me that it's your company running something on that band, since you guys are the only other ones who have the capability, you need to let me know, and you need to stop. It's not only interfering with our communications abilities, but you shouldn't have access to the particular system language that's being broadcast. I know a lot of our guys left to work for your company over the years, but if you knew the systems that language was built for, you'd want to stop it too. Listen, all I'll say is that it's biological. That should be enough to light a fire under your ass. Lastly, and probably unrelated to this particular problem, but have you guys noticed that the higher amplitude THZ and PHZ signals are affecting flies? Yeah, weird, I know, right? But when I look at the visualized readout of the signal band and compare it to the number of times we've found scores of dead flies in and around the facility, it's pretty hard not to see some correlation. I can send you a report if you want. I got bored the other day and drew something up. Oh, sorry. I've been going on and on about this without asking how you're doing. You good? How's Jessica? Cindy's been asking me to ask you to ask her if she'd want to do some tennis over the summer. Danny doing okay? God, he's got to be almost 10 now, right? Oh, shit. Isn't it crazy how this job makes time just fly by? I've been a little depressed lately because of that incident that happened a few days ago. You probably read about it in the papers. That soldier who had the psychotic break shot up his squad. The thing you didn't read about was how the autopsy revealed a weird growth in his brain. Not even a tumor. Some kind of severe fungal infection. Just awful. Anyway, sorry to be a downer. Write me back at your earliest convenience and let me know what you think. We should meet up for dinner soon. There's this vegan restaurant in downtown DC that's doing amazing things with mushrooms. And if you got the time, I'd love to take you there and discuss some work and non-work stuff. Say hi to Jess and Danny for me.